Hello everyone, welcome back to Yokai Temple, and it's gonna be a busy day, so, up to 8,000 altar power? What am I talking about? That's weird. I found out that following what appears to be some kind of world shift, those happen periodically in Minecraftian history, but they're kind of hard to predict. More specifically, Yokai hasn't been harmed by it at all, which I am going to attribute, as is the way with many religions, to all of the good stuff I'm doing. So, anyways, after that, he's working fine now, just needed a bit to warm up, as it were. I have had to reconfigure the Gomorillas, because no longer am I able to feed all 9 with a single piece. So, wait, what? Weirdness. So this system is now capable of feeding to all of them. I need to get some hoppers in here, but right now this one still works. This is the original. What are they talking? I don't know. So, in here we have Ender IO redstone conduit. You just make that from redstone alloy, which is just redstone and silicon inside of your alloy smelter. And that just basically carries a redstone signal, so it's carrying the same signal that we had before in this NOT gate, which is combined, just checking from the remote comparator, to right here. I also have a secondary mana pool here, so I've got one for the runic altar and one for the botanical brewery. And I've got one for actually just like dropping stuff straight in so that I don't have to fail at chucking stuff anymore. Also, this has been slightly more automated, so we've got the chucking system, as it were, which is able to drop everything directly onto the altar. I just have to shift it into there. And here I have a dynamism tablet. This is a little sort of like side mention on side of the Golemancy stuff from Framic Tinker, and that allows me to be constantly right-clicking this runic altar with the Wand of the Forest. I actually have a fresh new one for that, because that one was not really in my colours originally. So, everything gets dropped on, this automatically right-clicks it, starts it, they start feeding power into it. This can also immediately drop a living rock onto it, although I need to automate that system a bit, and we get our runes. Perfect. Needs a little bit more precise automation, but that's pretty nice. I'm liking it, getting into technology for the first time ever. Right. Oh yes, and speaking of, there's also item conduits in here, which you might recognize from certain parts of Yokai Technical. They give me a hand over here. So that's what we are able to feed the hoppers with. I'm going to be putting a chest along here that Mizuki can work with. Presently, they are still just dropping stuff into that hopper. And there's sort of a system here to sort of train line all of the mana along. So we just have a Elven mana spreader for each pair of Golmarillae now, which are feeding into a mana pool, which then feeds directly into an Elven mana spreader, because they're right next to each other in the next section, so it just sort of trains along, we don't lose anything. And I've got a Gaia mana spreader here just at the end to ensure that it all gets nice and cleanly over to this mana distributor. Let me just show you guys the recipe for that. Dupe. There you are. Okay, so it's just 2 mana steel and some living rock. Very cheap, and that can give that takes in mana from the mana bursts and distributes it to all of the mana pools it is in contact with. Very handy for purposes like this, at least. Moved over the brewery and the runic altar, so they can still like get stuff from here, but otherwise that's more or less it for now. But I thought that we would look a little bit into automagi today. So that's our mana gen. It needs a little bit of tweaking, which we'll be doing today. So first thing. Inside of Automagi, there is a device called Red Crystal, and it's basically crystalline redstone, as you can probably guess. But basically, it can go up along walls, and it can also be, like, right-clicked, so you can tell it which spots to actually be controlled from. So let me just grab a little bit of Red Crystal, which I believe I have inside up here. Yep, there we go. So, if I plonk some of this down, we can take a look at it. So we can see it's got all 4 pieces. If I haven't had my wand out, it's hitbox changes, and I can then turn certain directions off. So it's sort of like the red wire, except that I don't need like a half slab or something to turn a portion to turn it off from a certain direction. So that is pretty sweet, very handy, breaks very handily as well. And if you happen to be doing the slightest bit of research into Automagi and Red Crystal, you can get access to this, the dense Red Crystal. So this requires a sliver of earth, we'll grab that in a moment, and basically, if you see what's happening up here, So I've got a comparator with another comparator and the hopper coming into it, and this is just outputting a certain signal, so it goes into there and out comes there, and that is basically just saying if the signal is strong enough, allow it to pass, otherwise output nothing. Basically, dense red crystal does this entire section. So I can tune it to whatever level of power I want, and it will actually be able to do that for us. So let me handle that. So we're going to need an earth shard, which I happen to have quite a few of. I can still grow these. Thankfully, my spirit box is pretty much untouched as well, but that's to be expected. Okay, so earth shard into sliver of earth, and let me see, what was the recipe? I think it was just the 2 red crystal. So doot, and there gets us. There we go, 2 dense red crystal. So I can then hop up here. Retrieve myself a hopper and a pair of comparators. Although I don't have much for use for the comparators right now, except for making other comparators. Okay, axe. Right. So, get rid of that. Get rid of that. Stick that there. Okay, and let's set this to a minimum. You can see it on the top and in the chat there. Of 7. We'll say 8. Max is 15. Can turn these sections off, so it's all coming out nicely. It connects directly to the remote comparator because they're from the same mod, and now it is all readily. It's saving me 2 different blocks here, which is pretty sweet, and a hopper, which I can use on all of these open crates. So that makes it a whole lot more compact. That's like an extra 4 blocks off the footprint. That's pretty cool. Well, actually, no, it's even more because this is quite a bit longer. So yay, compactness, good. So yeah, there's the dense red crystal, and I can use that elsewhere as well, probably. There is the dim red crystal, which does sort of the reverse, so if it's above a certain power, you can cap it at that. I don't know exactly how many situations you need that for, but you never know, we might use it for something. Again, control that with your thing, and then the amplified basically serves as a signal booster, so you can send redstone for a much longer pulse. But that's not really what we're interested in next. What's next is the magic hourglass. So for that we need an hourglass, which is 2 glass panes, a sand, 2 silverwood, and a redstone repeater. I do have all of those ingredients inside of my ender pouch, or my ender chest. My ender hand. How's that? So take that and grab these. We are going to be needing 2 of these. So, sand, slabs, panes, and redstone Oh, I have a letter. Ooh. Oh, have I done this wrong? What am I getting wrong there? Those are the comparators, that's what. There we go. Okay, so, hourglasses function pretty much as you'd expect. You can right-click them and they'll wait for a little bit of time, and then they'll emit a pulse. They're also directional, so you get the pulse out of the sides, and you can get the you can control them redstone-wise from the front if they happen to be the right kind. And I can control this, so just like that. And if I shake it, you can see it now has a countdown. So in 10 seconds, this will finally tick down, and we'll get a pulse into this red crystal. There's also a neat little animation there. So there we go. So, that's good, but we can't control it with a redstone signal right now. So if I do this, well, apparently we can, which then begs the question, why would you ever not? Probably because the next one that we're going to make has a lot more control. And how do I pick you up? Do I just bash you? What? Yes, I do. Good. Phew, nearly lost myself an hourglass there. So, if we take the magic hourglass, or the hourglass, and we combine it with a few more pieces, namely weighted pressure plates, and red crystal, and a couple more things, I believe. But heck if I can't remember what they are. Jeez. My memory. I think they're something. Okay, so there's slivers of order and slivers of air. Thankfully we get 4 of these per, so this is actually fairly cheap to make. Order. There you are. So, the air shards, by the way, can also be used inside of making the, is it mercurial? It's close to mercurial. resonating red crystal, which is basically wireless signals, but they're kind of restricted on how you can actually lay them out, which is why I haven't really been using them. Okay, sliver of air, sliver of order, weighted pressure plates, hourglass, and a couple red crystal gets us 2 magic hourglass. So we can use these to much finer control, so we can tell them specifically, down to the second, how much time we want them to tick for. We can tell them what to do when they receive a redstone signal, all sorts of really cool stuff. So let me see where I can find a place to set this up. Let's just do it on the crossroads for now. So if I put these 2 down, and if I make them face the same direction, that probably helps. Bloop. There we go. So, then, if I grab a daylight center, a redstone repeater, and a NOT gate, and stick this about here, I think, and repeater there, NOT gate there, whoop, and let me just control some of these sides, just for neatness. Okay, there we go. Yeah, you can see that's ticking away now. And then if I put our remaining piece of dense red crystal here, and I set this to 3, so minimum, 3, turn those sides off, and just stick a couple more here, then we can see it is presently night, which means that neither of these are doing anything because there's no power coming out of this system. But I need to hook this up. Do I have any redstone just lying around? Any redstone at all? I should have some. Yep, there we go. So you just make this the red crystal stuff from whoop. Oh, okay, so there we go. So now this one is counting down. And then we would have gotten a pulse, but I was a bit busy actually like grabbing stuff. So what this basically is a system to emit a pulse both when the sun is getting low and when the sun is going high. And let me just deactivate that section. So yeah, now it can't actually be sending itself into a loop, which is nice. Okay, and if I right click, then we can set this exactly. We can tell it to repeat, we can tell it to send a pulse or a standard, we can tell it to do various things on activation, we can tell it what to do when it receives a signal. This, ladies and gentlemen, is how we're going to be controlling the gates of Yokai. So, we have our 2 village gates. There's one on that side, the north and the west, and there's also the doorways to Soko no Hayashi, and they're our biggest security banks, because if those are open, basically anything can wander in. Unfortunately, a large number of our residents do tend to wander, so they tend quite often to get stuck outside the walls. And it'd be really nice to actually have a functional entrance that people don't have to worry about too much. So what we're going to be doing is making sure that they are open during the day and that they close at specific points of the day so that we don't have to worry about closing them and that they'll just keep everybody safe quite nicely. The problem with doing that is we could use a clock with a counter, but people sleep, which sends that off quite haywire. So daylight is about the best way that we can do it. We can try and use a redstone, we can try and use a remote comparator on this maybe and just stick this wherever we need it. But this is basically the most compact way I could come up with, more or less. I wasn't planning on using redstone and red crystal here, to make this whole thing work, and that is really ridiculously tight. That is really nice. I really like that. One other thing that we can use the magic hourglass for is basically an extremely variable length repeater. So if I come over here, for example, some of you are wondering how I got the sound for the bell in. So down here we just have a tesseract on an ender energy distributor, which is powering the frame sliders up here. So it goes back 1, then forward 2, then back 2 again. So, plop. Down here's the wiring. So here is the button signal, which goes into this AND gate. This AND gate is receiving the state of this RS latch and that button. So if this is in a particular state, then the button signal doesn't go further in. But if it does succeed, then it turns this line off, so that line cannot come through again, and it sends a pulse out. That then goes into this state cell, which emits a steady state for a steady line of power for a given period of time. So this is all delicately timed. And then it outputs a quick pulse, and this one particular is going to the swinging it backwards line. So we just go along, and then there's this big, long repeater line here, which is kind of a mess. So what I could do is replace 3 of these with a single magic hourglass. And then when it's done, it will send a signal into the command block, and that command block triggers a sound that is presently inside of the mod pack. And then everything just goes through and resets itself quite nicely. Isn't that wonderful? So yeah, that is really nice, and I could do a whole ton of stuff with this red crystal stuff, especially the dense red crystal, which does a circuit that I've done quite often in my redstone career, but does it in like a third of the space, at least. It's ridiculously wonderful. Where is my clipboard? Okay, so, a little bit of time left, so we'll talk about mana lenses. Now, mana lenses are a feature of Britannia, and specifically they're a feature of the... Just empty my inventory a little bit here, because it's kind of full. Keep that on me. So, blip, and blip, and... No, that's everything. Okay, good. Oh, wait, no, get rid of that. Okay, excuse me. So, mana lenses change the way that these different mana spreaders can fire. So some of them basically turn it into a mining laser, some of it make it pass for straight through blocks, some of it make it a paint slinger, some of it make it hurt mobs, that kind of thing. But the one we are interested in is called Mana Lens Warp. So let's see, we're looking for Mana Lens. Mana Lenses. So there's the basic one you need to make to get everything. And let's see, warp. It's a fairly high tier because you have to use pixie dust to make it. Gotta be, influence lens. Yeah, that basically just makes it interesting. Connect spark, nope. Force, nope, that basically turns it into a piston. Okay, looks like it isn't going to show up here. Maybe it's under warp. It's a little... There we are, warp lens. Of course, it has its own special section. Okay, mana lens, warp. Vazki, get on that. That's listed incorrectly. So, mana lens, warp, made of mana lens and pixie dust. And what it basically does is when the blast collides with a force relay, which is sort of a remote piston if you want, or a piston proxy, you push that and it moves the block it's connected to. I tried using it for the pedestals, but it didn't work, which is why we haven't seen it at all. Then it teleports to the position of where the force relay's actual block. So if I put together, let me see, I'm going to need, firstly, to abuse this system, which is just so wonderful to watch. It's like raining money, basically. Okay, and do I not have another? I think I do, somewhere. I must have some lenses over, some panes over here. Yep, there we go. Going to need one of those. Going to need to retrieve my mana steel here. Good. Okay. So, to reiterate. Glass pane. Mana steel. Mana steel. Mana steel. Mana steel. Gets us a mana lens. Default one doesn't do diddly squat. So, more or less don't bother attaching it to anything. But, combine it with pixie dust. Like so. And we get our warping lens. So, I have a couple leftover mana spreaders in here. Handy. And I happen to have a force relay over in Sokono Hayashi from my testing. So I also made this Globetrotter's sash, like so many of you recommended. It's an upgraded version of the Sojourners. And this thing is kind of ridiculous. It sort of overlaps on my Cloak of Virtue, so I can't wear them both. But if I happen to take into my Fox form kind of account, then I can do something that is kind of ridiculous. So let me just wait for that to finish up, and tally-ho! So I am now traveling, I have done the math at this, at over 40 miles an hour. Like, it is ridiculous, and it carries over onto my flight as well. So that is just, like, I can practically outrun load. Sorry, Katashi. Didn't see anything. You're fine. This is actually, like, difficult to control kind of speed. This is ridiculous. And it's pretty decent speed as well with my Boots of the Traveller on, but this is kind of ridiculous speed. If you wanted to describe it, this is literally gotta go fast kind of speed. Like, wow. But let me see, it should be inside of here. Yep, Force Relay. Okay, so, if I take this Force Relay, and I connect it up to one of the mana spreaders, then any mana blast that goes from a warping lens into the mana spreader will go then immediately into the mana, into the warp lens will go into the mana spread. Words, English, that language that I grew up speaking. Okay, so I stick this here, and I then stick this here, and I put Force Relay here, and where's my wand, so I can link this. Okay, now, point of note, these things are really buggy to use, so if you shift right-click it, it will just pick it up. So you need to right-click it, and since the mana spreader doesn't presently recognize this as actually being a viable return, we need to turn it into a redstone mana spreader, which is fairly easy, just add a dot of redstone to it. So let me just grab this again, real quick, like. Whoop. I really need to take off this sash thing, jeez. Oh, apparently Mizuki is just checking out the wiring there. I promise you it is sound, don't worry, it'll be fine. Like, genuinely, man, like, redstone's basically my thing. So, take that, add that, gets us that. And if I put that there, ooh, nice little texture on it, and give it a redstone pulse so it actually works, then we should be seeing a little bit of mana inside of here. Emphasis on should be. So that's targeting that. This should be targeting that. Interesting. This is not what I discovered inside of my testing. That is weird. I'm going to work with that. But basically, this allows you to have wireless mana to a fault. So we can use it to send mana over to the Elven Portal, which is somehow still open. I'm not really sure why. And we can also send it down to the replacements for the sprinklers, which are right over here. What are these things called? I don't know. The Agricarnations. Whoop. Sorry. Oh, you fixed yourself already. Good. Good for you. So the Agricarnations need mana in their vicinity, so we can... Here's a weird time. So we can use that Force Relay system. I'll get it working for next episode so I can show you guys. To, like, deal with this. Like, I'm sure that's to do with, like, the Force Relay, because as I say, it's a bit buggy. But anyways, we'll start off next time with a time lapse, because I need to get this house done. This is getting ridiculous now. I have basically nowhere to live. I'm sleeping in the open air of the compound, which is nice, I gotta say, but still. And maybe we can find out some more about that Eldritch stuff, because I'm really curious about those other worlds. Ah, that's gonna be so fun. Anyways, with that, I shall catch you all